Our guest in this episode talks a great deal about dealing with anxiety. It's something a lot of us have to work through. For me, it comes up always in the hours before a race, but it can for sure creep up anytime.
Yeah, for me, it's usually away from the bike that my brain starts spinning on all manner of topics. What am I going to do about some house issue? Did I set up my brakes properly? Did I do a good job on that last podcast? Probably not.
No, you did.
These don't sound like massive issues, but it is mental garbage I could do without.
Yeah, me too. To calm things down, both of us, we both will use a little bit of CBD to sort of ease the situation. Floyd's of Leadville has all kinds of great stuff to help us take the edge off. Whether it is bugaboos in the night or nights before a race in my case, or after a stressful day at work, you just grab some capsules or the tincture and let Floyd's handle some of that mental baggage.
A little CBD, along with other techniques like meditation or just finding a few quiet minutes, can smooth things out and help you get the rest you need on the eve of your next start line or after closing time. Go to floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount.
And as always, thanks Floyd's of Leadville for sponsoring this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. Season 3, episode 18 now, the show that breaks down, builds you up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, hottie to most.
And I'm Eldon Nelson, but please feel free to call me Fatty. You know, normally we'd be in full countdown / freakout mode as we head into the final weeks of prep for the Leadville Trail 100. But this year, well, it's a hell of a mess, to be honest, and it is hard to know when and where we will line up for any race next. Hottie and I are joining the Rebecca's Private Idaho Challenge, and we encourage you to get into it as well. It won't be in Idaho this year, but Reba has put together a terrific program, which is going to culminate in a create your own course for race day, so be sure to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. The RPI Challenge has been a lot of fun so far. In fact, they've been in full training mode, and so you have still time to get in on the full suite of opportunity there. Or if you're just into the race day itself, that's fine. You can just jump in for the challenge, the race day challenge. But we say, hey, get to that RPI experience because there's training and coaching and nutrition and all sorts of things that Rebecca's offering this year, even though we can't be in Ketchum, Idaho / Sun Valley with her this year. For this show, though, we have an interview with another strong woman who has raced the Leadville Trail 100, and that is Sarah Sturm. And this show, it will be largely a talk about last year's Leadville race because she, in her first go at the LT100, finished in 2nd place.
And which is just incredible. And I want to talk a little bit about one of the harder things to do during the Leadville Trail 100 or any off-road race, and that is to reach into your jersey pocket behind you and pull out the item that you intended. Not just any item, but you got to have a little bit of luck to get the right one. Your brace is going, I could use a goo with gel, a goo gel with caffeine, and your hand goes into the pocket and you rummage around and you pull out a CO2 cartridge instead, and not what you intended. And so you go fishing again, all while you're bouncing down the power line. Bad time to have your hand behind your back.
Totally. A hard spot to reach for anything going down the power line. But I was really glad to see what my new DNA cycling shorts have to kind of solve this problem. Our podcast kit order included the Endurance Bib Short. This is basically DNA's gravel bib. And on the sides of each leg are 2 stretchy mesh pockets. Perfect for stashing those emergency go-to gels.
Yeah, you don't really want to stuff all your food in these pockets because that feels awkward. But racers know there's going to be a moment or two during a long event when they are going to want something real specific. And that is what should go into those side pockets of the DNA gravel bib.
That way, there's no mistaking what's coming out, like Fatty said, with the CO2 cartridge. You're not going to gulp down a CO2 cartridge now, are you? I hope not. And frankly, reaching into a pocket on the side of your leg is easier than reaching around to your back going down power line, right? That is, as long as you're not pedaling. But it's pretty easy to do. I've done it a bunch of times. I've had a little gel in those side pockets, reach in there real quick, pull it out. A bonus on the gravel bike bib is that it also has these two pockets on the back panel right at the base of the straps where you can stash some other emergency items. These pockets are a little harder to reach, but whatever you put in them will free up space for other items in your main jersey pockets.
You know what I use those for, Hottie, that is where I put my credit card and where I put my car key. It's stuff that I do not want to grab during the ride, under normal circumstances. It's stuff that I don't expect to use during the ride at all. If I need a credit card or cash during the ride, then an emergency has happened. And I want to be able to get to my key after the ride. And, I'm driving home. By not having them in my jersey pocket, there's no way that I'm going to reach in and while I'm trying to grab something out or put something back in that I'm going to accidentally pull out and drop and lose something that I want. So that special little pocket is super, it's tucked hard against you and it's not something that you're going to get to. So it's good for stuff that you don't plan to need under normal circumstances. I love that.
The DNA is offering a 10% discount to our listeners if you like the sound of these bibs. I think you can tell that Fatty and I both really enjoy them. Just go to dnacycling.com and in the custom apparel inquiry page, choose other in the Where Did You Hear About Us dropdown, then type Leadville Podcast. Now, of course, this show, we have a good interview again with Sarah Sturm. It's a long interview, so we want to, again, mention some of our great sponsors here and get to that interview as fast as we can. So we want to mention real quick something about Envy. Envy has been around as one of our sponsors, for a couple seasons now. And it's nice to hear that many of our listeners have put Envy wheels on their Leadville mountain bike builds. The M525 is just an ideal wheel set for the LT100.
Yeah, and of course we get, and Envy gets it, the 525 is a pricey item. It is a wonderful wheel. I have it on 4 different bikes if you count leases in mine, but it's got a big price tag to match. And that price tag is one of the reasons Envy came up with the AM30. It is a dual, use it anywhere, really premium wheel set, still carbon, still tubeless, still made in the US, but it comes in at about $1,000 less.
Yeah, the AM30 is part of Envy's Foundation Series. In addition to the mountain wheel set, the Foundation Series also includes 2 road wheel sets with a much lower price point, as Fatty just said. The AM30 comes in 29 and 27.5 inch. They are built with Industry 9 hubs and a design change that I really appreciate, and that's external nipples, so the wheels can be trued without pulling that rim tape.
Yeah, now these are still your nice wide 30 millimeter internal rims. And so you're going to want to run a 2.3 inch or wider tire. I personally run 235s at Leadville, so I think that's just perfect. In the AM30, would I call it the perfect ideal cross-country wheel set? No, but it is a great training wheel set. And it is a great wheel set for someone who is looking to upgrade their bike but doesn't have a gazillion dollars, right? And our friend at Envy, Jake, says, and this is Jake at Envy, Jake Pantone, he says, if you are looking for something a little more Leadville-ish, don't worry. They're going to be addressing the needs of Leadvilleans in the Foundation Series at some point.
You can learn more about all of Envy's wheels and components, many of which seem like they're made with the Leadville 100 in mind, but which can be pretty much handle anything you throw at them on any terrain. Just go to Envy. That's ENVE.com. All right. Sarah Sturm is our guest today on the show. In fact, she is the whole show. Sarah was raised in New Mexico. She lives in Durango, Colorado now. Growing up, her dad was a cyclist in the family, which meant Sarah was not. She tried everything else. Skateboarding, climbing. In high school, she was on the swim team, ran track, played soccer. But a broken ankle changed things for Sarah.
Yeah, and it wasn't just destiny. But while she was at Fort Lewis College, she decided to give the cycling coach a call, not knowing The Fort Lewis had one of the top cycling programs in the country. But that's Sarah. She dives into things head first and goes full tilt. She does everything with a lot of smiles and a lot of laughs. We were cracking up probably, less than a minute into the show.
But her 2019 was no laughing matter. Fatty, in addition to Leadville, she turned her calendar into a series of wins and podiums. Sarah Sturm is with us, a.k.a. Sturmy. I love that, Fatty. So we have Fatty, Hottie, and Sturmy. This is a perfect threesome in my mind. I mean, we've got it going.
We sound like a morning zoo.
I know.
We do sound like a zoo.
We are a zoo. These are zoo-like times.
Oh, yeah, truly.
Sarah's on the Specialized Gravel team, and she also has her own business called Oso Creative Graphic Design. So if you need any graphic help, Sarah Sturm is somebody to look up for that. What we're here to talk about, though, is Sarah's cycling activities, her bike work, her semi-livelihood, I guess you would call this. And first of all, what we'd love to do on this show, Sarah, first of all, is gloat about our guests, really inflate them a little bit here. So let's just look at Fatty. Have you seen Sarah's 2019? This is just 2019, what she did in 2019. She was first at the Belgian Waffle Ride, first at Single Speed Cyclocross Nationals. By the way, that was in defense of a title, so she's a back-to-back champion there. First at Sea Otter in the Pro Crit. And oh, by the way, she won that on a gravel bike.
Nice.
Lost and Found gravel race was a second place. Second at Downeyville in the cross-country category. Steamboat Gravel, third place. And of course, our very own Leadville Trail 100. Sarah finished second with a time of 7 hours, 54 minutes, 23 seconds. Second to Rose Grant, who was the champion last year. And just ahead of your very own Melissa Rollins, I should say, at 8:38. So, wow, what a 2019, Sarah. If you can, first of all, size up 2019 and how you were trying to roll that into 2020, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. It was an awesome, busy, unexpected season, I have to say. It started out with news that the cyclocross team, the 10-Speed Hero Specialized project, had kind of not folded, but more turned into a gravel team, this niche that I knew nothing about. But the bikes look kind of similar. So
that's all that matters, really.
Oh my God. So I feel like they're like, they were awesome. Specialized, that is. They're like, well, they didn't want to like cut all of us. And they're like offered us a spot on the gravel team. And of course I'm like, sure, why not? And that's kind of how I dipped a toe into, I feel like I started with Sea Otter, and the crit was very unexpected. I called my boyfriend and told him that I won, and he asked, his response wasn't like, wow, good job. He was like, wait, the pro crit? I was like, no, the blind crit.
It's the first timers, the age 50 plus crit.
But yeah, it was a crazy year, truly. Like I think people assume that I just kind of came out of nowhere, but I actually have been racing for a long time. Like I started in college, and have just kind of been working my ass off since then. And yeah,
with great results. Yeah.
How are you trying to roll that? So what was your idea going into 2020? I know everything's been put on pause, but had you set targets? What were you thinking about coming into 2020?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I had a couple of races on my schedule that I was really excited about, that I obviously kind of had my sights set on winning. And some of them were repeats. I was pretty nervous about going into this year's BWR. That was definitely the race that I don't know. I wasn't like super bummed when I saw that it got postponed because it had a lot of anxiety packed in. That was just like a selfish, like, oh, sweet, I don't have to think about this, because I really don't like being the defending champion. I do not like that space at all. I don't know how people like Kate Courtney do that.
I think you're the first person who has said that out loud, that there is, for at least, for some of us, maybe for all of us, a little bit of relief mixed in with the disappointment. And it's like, oh, it is not half bad not having to race.
It's so crazy. That's the kind of bike race, like before I would leave for any race, I would just kind of have a lot of anxiety about it. And then once I got there, it was always really okay. And I would like settle in and I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. But like truly the lead up is like the worst part for me. I mean, I like training, but the mental prep is tough. And this year I have been, in prep for the 2020 season, I was working, I've worked with a therapist, for my adult life, just for general mental health, but we were definitely putting some good work in, like mentally prepping for this season of, coming at it in like a strong and centered way. Just because I felt like there's a lot more pressure this year. So I put extra work into that. And so I guess to answer your question in a very long way, I had some big goals, but I had bigger, I guess, mental prep goals for the season.
We got to have you back on another time at some point just to talk about that, because for me, that is the single worst part about racing is the 48 hours before an important race. I am a normally laid back person. Right before a race, and talk to anyone in my family, I become intolerable.
Good. You're in good company. I think most of us are that way.
Well, how do you know? I mean, you've crewed for me before. I am not a pleasant person.
Yeah, it's not the feeding, Fatty, that's the hard part. Feeding you, that is. It's the calming you down. It's like, it's okay, man. You're going to be okay. Yeah. It's just a big ride. You're going to be fine. You've done this 25 times.
Oh, man. It doesn't get better.
No, it doesn't. It gets worse at some point.
Well, at Single Speed Nationals this year, I was so, oh my God, you guys, I was so nervous. I was probably the most nervous person who's ever been in denim shorts and a denim vest on a bike trainer. Like, I was the most nervous in the most ridiculous outfit, which had a layer of just absurdity to all of it that like should have brought me back down to like a normal level. But honestly, it just made it worse because I felt so dumb.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
I know.
We probably got to, so give us a little bit about the denim shorts and the whole outfit and the why.
Single Speed has this weird cult following of like, it's kind of the rebels, if you will, of the mountain bike scene, of the cyclocross scene. Yeah. And so I got back into racing. I quit for a while. And I got back in by signing up for Single Speed Worlds in Portland. And I did that for a reason, because I was like, all right, this is like a fun race that is also, I could go and like race as hard as I can, but I can also like wear a costume and drink shots of whiskey on the run up. And, it's just like fun, but you can also be like a competitive athlete, although not to go into that too much, but there's a lot to unpack with that. And this last year's Single Speed Worlds that I really wanted to win and didn't. But yeah, so I kind of brought that spirit. I've been bringing that spirit to cross nationals in the single speed category with a bit of a costume every year, just enough to remind myself why I race.
Yeah. If you Google Sarah Sturm cyclocross single speed nationals and just go for the images, you will see somebody riding and winning in cutoff jean shorts and a matching denim vest, mind you. And I think the year before there was some type of sequence type halter going on. Yeah. Very, very interesting race wear. But nonetheless, you win in it. So who cares? As long as you're coming
Levi's sponsor me.
That's right. Well, since this is the Leadville show, maybe we should talk about the 2019 Leadville Trail 100 and your day out there at 10,000 feet. Tell us how you decided you would enter this crazy race and how your day went.
So my boyfriend had actually done Leadville in like 2016 or something. And he's a little backstory. He's a super tall dude. He's like 6'6". He's like he's competitive on like the EWS circuit, the Enduro World Series. So like literally everything opposite of what I do. But he started racing as a kid with cross country, and he did Leadville, and that's kind of how I had started like hearing about Leadville. I have been in Durango for 13 years, so naturally, like we have a lot of Leadville champions in this town. And it's always kind of been one of those races like, oh yeah, on the back of my mind, like I've wanted to do it. And then because I raced with Specialized, they were like, a couple weeks before it, I think it might have been a month. They were like, hey, we have a spot for Leadville. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, sign me up 100%. I'm in. I don't know if I'm trained. I've never done that sort of thing. I'm in. And I drove out there with Howard Grotz and his girlfriend and my friend Ellen. And, Howard is an awesome, awesome guy. I've ridden with him and traveled with him quite a bit. And so he has such a unique perspective on it that's pretty calming. But
it's only 5 hours is his perspective, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, right. But he had the advice I really should have listened to, and I really didn't, or I just buried away and forgot about it. But he said the last like quarter of the race is the most brutal. And I remember like looking at the profile, like the elevation profile, and like thinking like, oh, whatever. Like once you're there, you're good. Oh my God. I always explain, like when people ask me how Leadville was, this is what I say to them. I say, it is the only time in my life I've seen the finish line and still thought I might not finish. It was a whole different realm of pain and mental suffering that I've endured. But it was probably one of the more special. I'm not saying this because I'm on your podcast. It truly was one of the most memorable days on the bike for me.
Oh, and I mean, that's why we have the show. This race does have a way of sort of grabbing you and not letting go. So take us back to, let's go to the starting line and just sort of take us through the day, through your mindset and your, how you were feeling through the day.
Well, yeah, like we were talking about anxiety and pre-race stuff before. The thing that makes me the most nervous is like starting logistics. And I'll back up even more. Thank God for our team manager, Fiona with Specialized, because if it weren't for her, I would have been very dehydrated and out of water. The whole like prepping your water bottles and knowing which feed you're going to want what at, and then marking everything. I don't know if other athletes do better at this. At the end of the evening, I ended up just putting drink mix in all of them and just saying, whatever, just hand me a bottle, because I was so overwhelmed by like trying to think through what I might need at what point. And everyone that was prepping in the room with us was like super dialed, and I was not, which if any of my friends are listening to this, they will laugh because they know it's true. I am not a logistics person. I would rather just have water or just mix or just give me whatever. And if I need something else, I will ask for it or figure it out. And so that was a really tough part for me, just the first year of doing that. I think when I said when I finished that race saying never again, never again.
We'll see you in 2021.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I had already signed up for Lead Boat, so I guess that was a lie. But yeah, so that was crazy. Like just trying to like wrap my mind around like just how many feed zones and where they were, and I had friends giving me advice, and anyway, So we had all these nice little bags with our names on them and an amazing team manager and support. And I was super lucky with that because at least I didn't have to like beg friends to stand around all day. And then getting to the line, I am one of those people that I would rather just sit on the start line for hours, knowing that I'm there and I won't miss anything and I won't miss the start versus sleeping in a little extra or like, staying at the house and then rolling over. I was really, really nervous about the corral thing because I had just heard how many people start and I was in like 3 or 4 from the start line, so I couldn't see the start line. And that made me a little nervous, but I got my nice little spot in the sea of, I truly like, that was the most dudes I've ever seen in one setting on bikes ever in my life.
1,600 or so.
It was crazy. Yeah. But for the most part.
Do you happen to remember what corral you were in? What color?
No.
Red? No? I'm just trying to figure out how far back you were.
Oh.
Like, were there, like, would you say you were 50 feet back, 100 feet back, 1,000 feet back?
It felt like
because all 3 of those are possible.
No, I feel like there was like 3 or 4 corrals in front of me.
Okay. So, gotcha.
Yeah. Which made me like, the OCD racer side of me. I was like, oh no. What if there's all the women in the first corral? I'm already back here. And then, I was sitting there and I de-stress by like chatting with people, but I also have learned over the years, especially with women, not everyone likes that. And so I have to be hypersensitive to the energy that other people around me are emitting because not everyone wants some like energetic, short female racer yapping their ear off as we embark on a 100-mile journey through Leadville. So I did find a little buddy on the start line and we kind of chatted about stuff and it calmed my nerves. And then we were off and I just remember thinking like, people were like left and right. They were like crashing. And I was like, and the speed in which we were racing in the first, 30 minutes, I was like, wait, I truly remember having this thought. Did I line up for like the 50 miler? Like, did I start the wrong race? Because I was like, there's no way. These people are sprinting. These guys have like, and then I like caught a friend that I was like, all right, for sure he's doing the 100. And I asked him, I was like, this is the 100, correct?
Well, dude, am I in the right race? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, these guys are just going to start coming backwards. And sure enough, we hit the climb and they did. And I just kind of like, I could see Rose ahead of me. And I knew where she was the entire race. So I just kind of settled in to like my pace. Like I didn't want to like try to match hers. And then we hit the big climb. Remind me what it's called.
Columbine?
Columbine. Yep. We hit Columbine and I saw her bike on the ground and I was like, all right, she's hydrated. She's peeing. I'm going to pass her. And I passed her and then I tried to give it a little extra. And
so did you pass her quietly so she didn't know you had passed her? Okay, so there was some stealth strategy here.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Okay.
I think I try, like, sometimes I, like, say these things that make me sound like a novice, but everything I do is pretty calculated. And, so I didn't make a ruckus or anything. And I went past her. I'm sure she could see me at some point, but I did have, like, an all black jersey on, and I actually don't know if Rose really knew who I was. I knew her because back when I raced Marathon Nationals, which was actually the race that made me quit for a while, she won that year. And so I knew exactly who she was, and she was teammates with my friend Sophia for a while. So I knew that she was going to be the person to watch, and she probably had no idea that I existed. Passed her. And then we got to the top, and I think I was still in first, and then, oh no, I'm sorry. I had to pee. And I pulled over and I peed and she passed me. And this
So the entirety of this story that you just told us is actually backwards, is what I'm hearing. Someone had to pee is sort of what I'm getting from this.
And so, yeah, this is when I questioned my life decisions, because as I was peeing, both of my legs cramped up.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really not a cramper. And I really was. I was in the hurt locker. And I remember, like, I was trying to be discreet because there's, as anyone who has raced it knows, there's a lot of people all the time. And, you know, as one
you're
of the
never
females,
alone.
Yeah, you're never alone. And people know, like, there's, you know, few females that do it. And so I was like, I don't want people to be like, oh yeah, Sarah, we saw her butt. So I tried to get off the side, but then when my legs were cramping, I had to like kind of stand a little bit. And I just remember peeing all over my shoes and questioning my life decisions, because I was like, I've chosen this. This was my choice. This is my life. I'm peeing on my shoes. I care so deeply about winning that I am going to continue racing, even though I have gross pee-pee shoes. And I did. And then on the descent, my legs cramped again and my back cramped. And I had to get off for a second, which isn't what you're supposed to do if you have cramps, but I did it. And then I got passed again, which sucks. So then I was in third. And I was in third for a really long time. And I can't remember. I should have pulled up the names of all the climbs. I think you're climbing back up power line. So you've descended down and then you do a lot of riding and then you come back up power line. And I saw Rose's team manager at the bottom and he was carrying wheels away. So I knew that she was well in front of me, which is also probably why he said, Sarah, go get second place. She's right there. Because I know Kenny, he's a good friend of mine, but he wouldn't have said that if Rose was close. So she must not have been that close, but second place was, and it was on this climb. And I just kind of put my head down and like just suffered 1,000 deaths.
Everything else in the Leadville 100 is basically softening you for the power line climb. And that is the truth of the race. Yes.
But also it was kind of like great timing because I was catching her. So like I brought her back into sight. I could see her. And if you're ever on the chase, you know, once you can see someone, like your chances of catching them are a lot higher, at least for me, because I'm so dang competitive. Oh, to a fault. So I dug myself in, and like to the point where I was like, I remember there was this woman on the side who was giving out slices of watermelon. And I had been just alone for the whole time. Like, you know how people will like kind of race with a buddy? Sometimes there was no buddies. There were no buddies. And I was just alone. And like, I saw this woman giving out watermelon and I like sobbed. And I was like, can you put it in my mouth? Because I didn't want to stop or take my hands off the bars. And she fed me a piece of watermelon, and then this guy in a banana suit. Oh my God, I sound like a crazy person.
No, I saw that guy.
Yes, God bless him, because he ran next to me and he just talked to me. And I was like, thank you, banana, at the top of the climb. And I don't know who that guy was, but I called him Banana. And honestly, it just like kind of made me laugh and got me through that last little push. And then I was just trying to open up the gap from me to third place, because I knew I had a good chance of getting second if I could just keep my speed consistent, which I felt like I did a good job of until I hit that last part that Howard warned me about. And that's when I just mentally came unraveled.
When you unravel, and I think almost everyone has some moment where they unravel a bit. How did you pull yourself back together? How did you bring that back? Because obviously you did.
Gosh, That's a great question. You just have these moments. So like when we would hit the pavement, I just remember feeling like, okay, I can do this. Like when you hit pavement after being on those like loose, like dry climbs and you're just so smoked and like it's super hot. You kind of get this like little boost of confidence of like, all right, I actually like can put some power down. And you know how you kind of like weave in and out of like these steep, loose, shitty climbs. And then you pop out on pavement and you're like, okay, I got this. And then I would slowly catch people that I knew. And that was really motivating. And so you just have to you have to emotionally grasp onto these little things that keep you going, like little motivators of like, all right, just got to get through this section. Cause like what I like to do is pull up the GPX file of like the elevation profile. Cause these things are not about mileage. They're about elevation. And yeah, so I could see when I had another little like awful climb coming up and it's like a combination of ignoring what you know is coming and just trying to get through each pedal stroke. And I know that sounds like so cliched, but you're like, okay, the alternative is I quit, but you know you're not going to quit. And so you just have to keep enduring. And so you just try and like stay as focused as possible and not run out of water, which I feel like everyone warned me of. Like when you get to a certain point, make sure you have like 2 bottles of water. And I didn't. And I was really thirsty by the end. And that was really shitty. Because I remember like there was a family that had like an extra bottle. And obviously now with COVID going on, you're like, oh, you would never do that. And I remember being kind of grossed out, but I took someone's bottle that I didn't know who they were. And I was like so out of water. And I was like, please give me a bottle of water.
You know, when you're desperate, you'll take practically anything.
Oh my God. I've like dipped my head into rivers where I'm like, cool, I can see the cows up there. I hope I don't get giardia, but it's worth it.
I once saw a person, and this was actually in the Leadville 100, and it was about 80 miles into the race, so just toward the very top of the power line, stop and pick up someone's empty power gel.
Oh no!
And wring out a little bit of gel. There was someone who was so bonked.
Savage. Oh, that just gave me goosebumps. That's so burly. See, there's so many moments that people have that you're like, I'm sure people question their decisions.
Oh yeah. But when you're that desperate and
we've been there. I've been there. I know.
Take it from a fast pro. Have enough water. You don't have to borrow.
That is not a good feeling ever. Like I've done a lot of bike packing trips and endurance rides, and being thirsty and racing sucks. And then being thirsty and racing for second place also really sucks, because you're like, well, that was a preventable thing that might cost me, a podium spot. And you're just like, ugh. And you say you won't do it again, and then you do it again.
High five on the way up from Columbia Falls, Montana. Your first place pro female 2019 Stages Cycling 100. Rose Grant.
Sarah is so much fun. Great energy. I just love talking with her. But coming up, I'm going to put her on the spot with a single speed challenge. I know it seems like forever, meantime, since we've raced, right? It feels like a long time ago since we've had pre-race jitters, since we sweated the details, since I made Hottie fill out 3 legal sheets of notes on how to crew for me. So maybe it's time for a little bit of a refresher. And for this race prep update, we're going to get into the specifics of mixing your Martin energy drink.
We've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating here. It is important to get the Morton mixed to water ratio spot on. Now, here it is again. Whether using the 160 or 320 calorie packets, Morton says use a half liter or 17 ounces of water. The tough bit here is that water bottles are either 21 or 24 ounce. So here's a good way to get it right. Get a 1 liter container, Dump 2 Morton packets into it and fill it with water. Shake, obviously, shaken, not stirred. Then dispense that fluid into your bottles or hydration pack. Getting the ratio wrong can do a number on your gut. Getting it right, and you'll be hydrated and fueled.
I do things perhaps a little simpler and lower tech than Hottie. I just have a Sharpie, and after measuring once what 500 milliliters is on a bottle, I just marked it on my bottle, fill it up to that level from that point on. And that's worked out pretty well for me since I'm using Martin 160 right now in most all of my training rides. But a couple of other little notes on Martin. Watch the calcium content in your water. Some bottled waters have higher mineral content, so make sure you check the label. No more than 40 milligrams is ideal. Martin and our friends at the feed say tap water is your best bet. That's what I've been using. And one other thing on race prep, the feed say it is fine to mix bottles the night before, just don't freeze it. And which is actually really good to know because I do like to freeze bottles on hot days and things have been hot lately. So room temperature is best.
Martin is one of the many great products at the feed. Go to thefeed.com/Leadville and sign up for that 15% discount. I was checking out one of the videos by our friend Josh Portner over at Silka, where he was talking about the top 5 ways you can make your bike faster for under $100. And number 3 on that list was a chain. And not just any chain. Josh specifically pointed out the Shimano Dura-Ace chain for its low friction performance.
Yeah, of course he did. And Josh knows where all those little marginal gains are hidden. Some of them cost nothing. Some of them cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. But a Shimano 11-speed Dura-Ace chain will run you much less, well, a little less than $50. Josh tells us the Shimano chain is about a watt faster than anything else they have tested, and that counts over the course of 100 miles. By the way, folks, in the 11-speed lineup, a Dura-Ace chain and an XTR chain are one and the same thing.
Shimano is hesitant to reveal its specific, but Josh figures it's in the manufacturing. Well-controlled surface finishing, phenomenal chrome plating, and intricate detail in the link shapes. That's what makes a Dura-Ace/XTR 11-speed chain a marginal gain worth the price tag. I agree. I have Dura-Ace chains on my gravel bike and 2 road bikes, and they are terrific.
Yep. And I have 2 for my current single speed, 2 chains for one bike. Having one chain on the bike and the other in cleaning solution or in Silka's hot wax is actually a super easy way to keep kind of rotating things through and always have a clean and fast drivetrain. Anyway, leave it to Shimano, to make a hardworking, non-bling part like a chain into a marginal gain masterpiece. Check out all of Shimano's performance-enhancing components at bike.shimano.com.
Okay, let's find out if a 2-times cyclocross single-speed national champ wants to test the boundaries of one-gear misery over 103 miles and at 10,000 feet or above.
I got to ask you a question about single speeding. Obviously, you're a single speed pro. You've done CX. Single speeding. Have you ever thought about single speeding Leadville?
No, but that actually
I just planted a seed.
I know. Now I'm like, yeah, sign me up. The last single speed mountain bike race was Single Speed Mountain Bike Worlds in Durango that I did. And I had really never mountain biked before. And I am pretty sure I won the beer drinking competition, but not so much the finishing the race competition. I was in college in my defense. But yeah, single speed mountain biking is a different ballgame because I feel like in cross, there are definitely a lot of moments in a race that you're like, well, this is the wrong gear. And that's just kind of like the joke of single speed. Like you're perpetually in the wrong gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never going to. So when people think that like getting into single speed is a lot more simple, it really isn't. Because you have to switch you could just click a button on your bars and you can shift those gears. Well, when you're a single speeder, you have to have a mechanic to change everything around. And but with all that said, boy, that would be a whole extra added layer of suffering. But you know what I do love though is just grinding out climbs, like long climbs, which is probably why I have taken to endurance racing, because I just like settling in, you know? And I think that's why the end of Leadville is so hard for me, or was so hard, because they're short enough climbs that you can't really settle in, and it's enough to just disrupt the flow. And it's like that for what felt like hours. I think it was hours of that. It's crazy. Do people ever ask you what you think about during a race?
I have. I have taken that question, and often it is left, right, left, right, left, right. It's about that deep.
Right. I know. Isn't that wild? Like, I feel like I am someone, like, during training rides, I will think about everything but cycling. But then during a race, I'm like, left, right, water, where's the climb, who's behind me? Like, it's all so focused on racing.
Can I hold this? Is this too hard? Am I a little too hot? Am I a little too cold?
Yeah.
And is it going to rain? It is all about, the thing of the moment. I don't have a lot of deep thoughts when I am racing.
Totally. No deep thoughts. I did at the last probably couple hours though, of like, okay, I was like in the, like, am I going to finish this realm, which is why I truly, like, I remember hitting the pavement and hitting that last, like, roller before, like, it's like kind of a downhill to the finish. And I remember cresting that roller, and there was this woman with like a baby stroller. And oh my God, I sobbed when I saw the line. I was just like no tears, because I was probably so dehydrated, but I sobbed. And she asked me if I was okay. She had no idea, like, that, like, what I was going to get second or whatever. But I just remember telling her no, and then continuing to go.
I am far from okay.
I am so not okay in so many ways.
Emotions. There is no one who crosses that finish line whose emotions are, they're in every corner, right?
Oh, God.
You're joyful, you're angry, you're sad, you're happy, you're elated, it's just, everything, and up to 11, right? Always.
Totally. Which is why, and like, I think Leadville is such a special event for this piece. The coolest part about the whole race, especially when you start, like, if you're in front of like the masses, I guess, like, you start like kind of doubling up on, like, you'll see people who are starting sections that you hit a while ago. And I just remember feeling like really, really impressed with the grit of people. 'Cause, like,
yes,
I mean, last year, like, my life was about cycling. Like, I trained a lot. I rode a lot. I raced a lot. Like, I was a finely tuned machine and had the privilege to be that way. And I have great sponsors, and I put everything into this moment. And, like, yeah, I was suffering at a fast pace, but, like, suffering is suffering. And, like, people who have 9-to-5s, I would say, are the ones who make up the majority of that race. And that is the coolest, most impressive part, really. Like, yeah, I'm impressed with Annika Longvod's record and Howard and how fast he does that race. And, like, yeah, whatever. They're all freaks of nature. They can train as hard as they want. But, like, really, the people that, like, are just, like, I hesitate saying normal, because I feel like that's, like, a negative thing. But, like, you have, like, a normal life where, like, your life doesn't necessarily revolve around training and riding and enduring like we do. And I feel like that is the coolest part of that experience, and why I also really love gravel racing, because it's all mass start. And so you're with everybody, and it's really special. I don't know. It's cool. 'Cause, like, you just kind of admire how strong humans are. Like, we aren't tested on like, this is as far as the history of humans' existence in the world, like the time that we're living now is the easiest it is to live. You can go to the grocery store, you have a shelter, you have technology. So we get to challenge ourselves physically and mentally in these ways. Because I think humans like crave that challenge of existence, and doing these kinds of rides and races. I don't know. It's a special thing to like really break yourself down to that, like, am I going to survive this feeling? It's something that, I don't know, not everyone gets to feel that.
Yeah. The race at the front can have an interesting story, but truly the most engaging stories are happening from probably 20th place on back. Those folks have got
100%.
Absolutely every one of them has some type of wild, crazy, interesting, heartfelt thing that happened to them. And that's the Leadville Trail 100 summed up in as few words as possible. But what a great day for you. Again, second place for Sarah at the Leadville 2019. Had Rose Grant in her sights, so first place wasn't far off. And again, the whole 2019 season, really a terrific year for you. And you said, Sarah, you came into the year in terrific shape, which brings me to really the thing that caught my ear about Sarah Sturm. It was something she was talking about in another show on another podcast when she told the interviewer, yeah, in my training for years, I have not trained with a power meter. I've not used a heart rate monitor. I just go out there and feel it. In a day and an age when we're all stuck to our data and checking out our numbers and doing FTP tests and ramp tests and sitting on our kickers or what have you and examining every data point, Sarah Sturm, second place at Leadville, first at Belgium Waffle Ride, first at Single Speed Cyclocross Nationals, first at the Sea Otter Pro Crit, and everything else, you were doing it basically on feel. Tell us how you pulled that off.
Well, I've talked about this a lot. And so I quit racing, as I kind of had mentioned before. And I quit because I just felt like I was never I never really quite fit in to that like athlete archetype that I had seen. Obviously, like I learned about the sport of cycling in Durango, which is by chance, like one of the meccas in the country. Like I chose the liberal arts school in like this very unique place for mountain biking and bike racing. And so I was surrounded by this archetype of athlete, and I just never really fit into that. And I tried to force myself to do that, and it ended up just really not being fun. And so I quit. And then when I came back, I work with, he's a coach, like he is trained. He has other high caliber athletes. But really he's kind of just like a guide for me. He's a really close friend of mine, and he knows who I am as a person. And he never really like pressure. I was like, look, I kind of need to just do this my own way if I'm going to do it. And, everything is based on feeling. And, it's just how I don't know, like, I think there's a lot to be said for like knowing your body and like knowing, if you think you know what your number is, if you think you know, like, oh, my, power number is, what's it called when
FTP?
Yeah. Like your number of self-worth.
I love that. Good description.
Yeah. Then in a race or like what training or whatever, like there's going to be, I feel like a lot of the times there's going to, or at least for me, there would be a governor on what I can put out, based on like, okay, I have that number in my mind. And one, if I don't reach that number, then I'm going to feel shitty. Or if, I'm at that number, like I know I can't push beyond it because that's my number or whatever. I don't know. I think there's like some weird psyche that goes along with all of that information that we have. And I just am not, it's just not how I'm wired. I don't know.
No, I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, Lawrence Tandam is the same way. He throws out all the data and just goes out and rides his bike. I'm kind of similar. Like I have a kicker. I know what my FTP is, but when I go out and ride, Do I have a heart rate monitor? Yeah. Do I pay attention to it? Sorta. But mostly I just ride. I go, you know what? I'm going to go get in 3 climbs today. I'm going to go pretty hard on them. I mean, and that does get the job done for some people. I mean, I get that. Now it's changed for you a little this year, hasn't it, Sarah? I mean, you have found yourself using power because of the pandemic and so forth.
Well, yeah. So I figured like now is a great time to just, try some new stuff. And I have a new sponsor this year, Wahoo. And so I had those things accessible. So I got to train on a kicker, although I get so hot riding. We get winter here for sure. And that's like basically the only time that I could use an indoor trainer because I get like way too toasty doing that stuff. So I had a sampling, although when you set those things up, sometimes like you have to get them up to a certain like cadence. And my boyfriend and I have this theory that there's some computer programmer somewhere that just wants to mess with people because I was seriously trying to set this thing up and I was like, okay, I like had my jeans on or whatever. And it was like, okay, get it up to like 40 or 20 miles an hour or something like to set everything.
Yeah. To calibrate it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Calibrate. There's the word. And I was like, dripping sweat in my jeans. I was like, ended up going to get my shoes to clip in and I could not get the thing. And I was like, I am a terrible athlete. I should quit this sponsorship and tell them they should give it to someone else. I don't deserve this.
I'm too weak to calibrate.
And then one of my friends was like, well, did you try unplugging it and then plugging it back in? And I did that and like spun it up to the cadence like instantly. And I was like, God damn it. See? One more reason that I'm not meant to do data and numbers and all of it. It just, I don't know. So anyway, to get back to your question, for COVID, I was having a hard time like structuring my days just from like a time standpoint. And I do this thing, especially if you own your own business, like the days just fly by. And then all of a sudden it's like 6 p.m. and you haven't touched your bike and you were sitting in your chamois for like 4 hours, like at the computer, that sort of thing. And so I was like, you know what, Rotem, like, I think I'd like for you to give me a training plan because I need stuff to check off of my list in the day and feel like I've done something and am productive. And so we did a training plan and it's really the first time I've ever like really done that sort of thing, which is funny because literally there are no goals for racing. And then I did a power test and I really still, I don't know. I just don't, I don't get the power thing. I understand it. Like people have explained it to me. I get it. My first power test though, one of my friends from Specialized, he told me what his power number was. So I was trying to beat it.
Nope.
You are a little competitive.
Oh my God. And I beat it for the first 10 minutes. And then the last part of the test, I just absolutely exploded. And I didn't beat his power number because I'm 115 pounds and he is much bigger than me. And now I learned that lesson the hard way. So, yeah, I just am someone that like, if I'm going to go hard, I'm going to go hard. And if someone's in front of me, I'm going to try and get them.
Well, you said you're currently living in Durango. That's where you went to school, right? Fort Lewis College is your alma mater. And that's where you got into mountain biking. As I recall, I think your entry into mountain biking was borrowing a bike from Ned Overend's wife. Terrific. I love that story. And you had a cycling career at Fort Lewis College, not a bad place to ride bikes. At some point, you won the short track nationals, right? And that was just after college?
Yeah. So I won short track when I was in school. In school. I think I was a junior. Yeah. I got into mountain biking a little later, I guess as a sophomore. I dabbled. And then I did pretty well, but I was the mountain biker who was like pretty strong on all the climbs and then would just clog up the single track on the descent.
We know those.
And Yeah, and it was so brutal. So at least and short track, it was my thing because it was usually a pretty open track, so it wasn't like as technical. But over the years, I've gotten a lot better at the technical side of things. Dating someone who races enduro, that helps. That helps you feel real shitty about yourself.
Well, I love your continuing story about mountain biking here, and that is your entry into enduros. And you did this why? To get out of your comfort zone? I mean, not because you thought you'd be competitive, because you thought it'd make you better.
I mean, honestly, and this is why I stuck with mountain biking, I always got along way better with mountain bikers. You know, I think I had more of a future maybe as a road racer if I stuck with it. It was just kind of the thing that I felt like I was a lot better at. But I just never clicked with the road vibe. And I was never really like good friends with anyone who was really into road racing. And that honestly, for a lot of people like into racing, like, that's how like talent is found, right? Like, you know, like your friend is like a lot of road racers were like old soccer players who had injuries and they got into it and a buddy told them and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I just kind of found the scene in mountain biking. And then when I quit, racing, like I said, Dylan was really into enduros, and it's the format of racing that I don't know if you know this, but you can do it and not look at the results. So you can participate and not know how you do. It's great. And to this day, I still have never looked up. I'm sure my father has. Wow, you got last again. Yeah, you don't have to look it up ever, which is kind of cool because you can just go for the experience. And I really liked the places that we got to ride. I've ridden some really terrifying trails in BC, trails that I had no business being on. And I even signed up for an Enduro World Series when I was living in New Zealand. And I really, really had no business being at that. But I think all that, I mean, I kind of learned the lesson of like, all right, you can either be last and be a sourpuss and like beat yourself up and be no fun to be around, or you could be last and like be fun and like have a good time and still make some friends and meet some people and like challenge yourself. And I kind of had to like scoop myself up off the truly like off the ground and have a little pep talk with myself. And it was a good lesson to learn. And enduros are the people that do those competitively, like it's insane. They're so intense. Because you have to have a decent amount of fitness because you're riding for like 7 hours in a day, not at the level that you are for Leadville. You know, you're not bleeding out of your eyeballs, but it's pretty full on descending. And a lot of the time, like I signed up for a lot of the blind enduros. So like you just do these like this 6-day race of like, you can't go and practice any of the tracks. Like you just have to be a good trail reader and read what's in front of you. So suffered through a couple of those. One year, Dylan looked at me and he was like, we can sign up for the BC bike race next year if you want. He felt bad.
I say do it.
Yeah.
All right. And I want you to seriously consider 2021 Leadville single speed. I would love to see you take the overall single speed win. And I think that is something you have an excellent chance at doing.
That's kind. I wonder, I'm going to have to go and look and see what types of people do that. I think it sounds right up my alley. That's why
we'll talk offline. Yeah. This conversation is just starting, but
it never had even crossed my mind, but I think that sounds great. Why not add another level of suffering onto that race?
That's right. Okay. You're committed there. That was awesome.
Have you done it?
I actually do have one. That is my only Leadville win. Is I have won the Leadville single speed.
I should have known.
Well, that's the only reason I brought it up. I've been looking for a chance to say that for like the last 45 minutes. So.
I'm so impressed.
No, it's as you know, single speed is just a different kind of hard. It's
So single speed mountain biking is just so it's on a different level than single speed cross, and especially for something like Leadville. Like, how'd you choose that gear?
34x19. It's just the right gear for Leadville, and it's that simple. So.
Oh, you told us your secret.
Okay, we need to move this to a different episode. We're going to have to bring you back, Sarah. I want to talk to you more about dealing with the pre-race anxiety. Want to talk with you about your commitment to do Leadville 2021 on a single speed, and so much more. But it's been such a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much.
Oh no, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Well, what do you think, Fatty? Sarah Sturm, single speed, Leadville 2021. I mean, with those initials, SS, isn't she already committed?
I feel like I pressured her a little too much, but I would love it. Sarah is a rising star on the endurance scene. And with that comes, of course, a lot of commitments, not just to oneself, but to the people and companies that support you.
And that's a tough bit for athletes like Sarah. They have followed their heart to get to this point, but suddenly things get more serious and there are higher expectations. Our bet, though, is Sarah keeps her smile and her laugh and finds a way to follow her heart and keep everyone happy. She just seems to have that kind of personality.
Oh, she sure does. So on that note, let's go ahead and wrap up season 3, episode 18 of the Leadville podcast, presented by our friends at Floyd's of Leadville. If you like this show, give us a 5-star rating and a review over at Apple Podcasts and share it with your other cycling friends. Support our show by supporting our sponsors. You got to let them know that you appreciate them making this show possible.
Meanwhile, if you have ideas or questions for us, head to the Leadville100podcast.com comment section and get in touch. That's also where you can find a link to our Slack workspace and jump into our never-ending Leadville conversation.
It never ends. And you can also find us on Twitter. I'm at Fat Cyclist and Hottie is at Michael Houghton. And you can also find us on Facebook in the Leadville 100 MTB participants group. So folks, good luck in your training. Thanks for listening. And we will see you at the 2021 starting line.
I have a barky dog. Okay. Anyway. There he is. Pause.